Hey, somebody's got to put out the molten lava. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth. With actual listeners in more than 100 countries, I am the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today, and with every show we do, is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. Our sponsor this week is IAITAM.org. It's pronounced ITAM.org. This is the only global member-based training organization dedicated to meeting the needs of IT asset management professionals. This is the only place turning out IT asset managers that corporations immediately hire all over the world. So check them out. How'd you like to complete it's like an accredited online program and get a degree that's actually in huge demand? And I know you're saying, okay, in huge demand by who? Okay, just go to IAITAM.org and let your eyes bug out as you look through their client list. You're going to see everybody from Sony Pictures to NASA to the United Nations. Google is one of ITAM's clients. Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple. These companies only hire the people that ITAM has trained, because ITAM offers the only accredited degree in the field. That's IAITAM.org. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on the Professional Noticer. We have a lot of fun. Sometimes we laugh a lot. Sometimes we get really serious. Sometimes we get into your personal life. And I always like to bring you people that you might not ordinarily come across. And I met a guy a few years ago at a leadership forum, and I was impressed with him. I've recently been reacquainted with him, and I want to bring him to you. Now, I was just doing some research on the guy, and so I have just some stuff I found on the internet about him. And so I'm just going to read this to you as an introduction. His name is Dominique J. Henderson Sr., all right? And ever since elementary school, he knew he had a mission to help people win with their money. So professionally, Dominique has spent over 2 decades in financial services, and he's built an incredibly diverse skill set in strategy, data analysis, investment research, portfolio management, financial planning, and business coaching. And he has founded his registered investment advisory firm, which is DJH Capital Management. But before that, he actually spent years in institutional fixed income trading circles like real estate, and the back office was one of Dallas's premier hedge fund managers. He does live in Dallas, by the way. DJH Capital Management focuses on helping clients make bigger, better decisions with their money, while he has what's called the Jumpstart Coaching Lab, and that educates and coaches the next generation of financial professionals to serve this growing group of individuals seeking financial advice. Now, get this. Dominique's advice has been featured on media platforms like U.S. News and World Report, Yahoo, GoBankingRates.com, and Investmentpedia's Advisor Insights. He hosts a weekly video broadcast on YouTube that helps consumers and providers of financial services have better conversations around money. And I just think this is very cool. Dominique holds a bachelor's degree in finance. He has a master's in securities analysis and portfolio management from Creighton University, and he has the designation of certified financial planner. It's like, good grief, I need to quit here and go back and take a math class or something. Please welcome Dominique Henderson. Dom, how are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. When you were reading that, I was like, Is that me? I don't really remember if that's really me.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling because it takes you years to accomplish all this stuff. And then somebody just like lays it out there. Sometimes I listen to those introductions too, and I think, good grief, really? But, because, when you lay it out there in 60 seconds, it's, if you want me to call your wife and tell her how great you are later, I will, It's like,
we already know I married up. So.
Oh, man. Well, man, so are you in Dallas today?
I am.
All right. Well, we first ran across each other years ago in a leadership forum. And I think that it's telling that a financial planner would be at a leadership forum, because one of the things that is curious to me about you is that you think differently. Financial planners are like barbers. There are a ton of them out there. And so you have to be careful who you deal with. And I told a friend of mine not too long ago who said he was going to invest some money, with a financial planner. And I said, so who is the guy? And he said, oh, I met him in some thing. And I said, so like, what does he do? And the description he gave me of the guy was, well, he's kind of just like me. And I said, dude, then be careful, because if he knew what to do with money, surely he would have done it with his own, right? I mean, you want to look at people. And so you look very good to me, Dominique. How did you develop a different view and a different pathway from traditional thinking?
This is a great question. I think, if I would have to go all the way back to my upbringing. So I still credit my parents, which are alive. They're literally like 5 minutes down the road from me.
What did they do?
So my dad was a military vet. He spent 22 years in the U.S. Army and tagged us around everywhere. Me as the oldest, I got the brunt of that because I got to move every 2 or 3 years and find a new set of friends. So
yeah,
I think that built a sort of perseverance and a discipline in me.
Sure.
Although I may have not, realized that at the time. I was probably being a knuckleheaded teenager. But the point is, you ask what kind of built that different thinking. And I think I was forced to kind of be a chameleon in a lot of ways. And, I didn't always accept the status quo. I always questioned things. So that was part of it.
That's good. And so when I talked to you the other day, and as we were talking, your curiosity about what I had written was always, every question you asked me was always about a thinking to a different conclusion. It's almost every question you asked. And so as I began to, look over your career and look and see what you've done, what different conclusion have you come to that you kind of go, wow, guys, this is like, wide open here and everybody could see this, but nobody seems to see it?
Yeah, I think that the whole notion around perspective is so huge here, because you mentioned earlier, a lot of financial advisors are made to look like, the same gallon of milk. We all are forced into this homogeneous, do the same thing, concentrate on this same thing. But at the end of the day, I kind of look at financial services a little different. I look at it as limited time and money having to be spent over seemingly unlimited choices. And when you think about it in that regard, each client that comes to me or each professional that I try to mentor, the goal is really as a servant or a facilitator to somebody else's dreams. That's the only reason why people come and work with financial planners. It's not to get a big pile of money, because the big pile of money is to do something else. And so I think it's really, really curious in my regard as to why the industry hasn't really focused on that. I think there's a lot of reasons. One of them is money, because it's a very lucrative industry. But at the end of the day, I looked around and I was like, there should be a place for aspiring financial professionals and existing ones to to find the resources they need to serve their clients at a different level, more than the old mundane, way of looking at things, but a way of creating a life for people that allows them to be the best of who they're supposed to be.
You know what I hear you saying is that um, the typical thing that a financial planner would look at is the obvious, the money. They would look at that bottom line, but you are looking beyond the bottom line to what the bottom line is used for. You're getting more instead of numbers oriented. I think I'm hearing you say that you're values oriented.
Very much so. There's a scripture, a passage in the Bible that says, "Where your money is, or your treasure, your heart will be also." Right. So when I start thinking about this saying that we have in our culture, which is "put your money where your mouth is," it's like, actually, people put their money where their heart is.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a more values based thing, because I always tell my clients of like, show me your budget. I'll show you where you spend your time and what's important to you. And I think at the end of the day, we all are goal striving humans and individuals, and we want to achieve things, whether that's, being able to retire early or whatnot. But I always ask the question beyond the question: why do you want to retire early? Oh, well, it's because of this. Well, we'll keep on going. Well, then we find out we have a aging parent that they want to spend time with because they, maybe lost that in childhood or whatnot. So it's always good to keep probing and asking really good questions, because as a financial planner, again, the skills are out. I mean, I don't think it's lost on anyone that in the information age, most people can Google this stuff or YouTube it, to their heart's desire, and find out this information. Now, granted, me and my peers have worked really hard to consolidate it and, maybe get it a little bit quicker, but it can still be found. So the value's not there. The value's in uncovering what's important to Andy, what's important to his family, what's important to his legacy, right? So that, when you're gone, or, those that you care about, they're realizing all the fruits of your labor from all the time you spent in, which obviously money and finances has purchased.
Dominique, what, you know, I listen to you and I'm reminded of one of the lessons that I learned from Jones, and that is the quality of our answers will be determined by the quality of our questions. That if you want good answers in your life, you got to ask good questions. And it sounds to me like you are asking good questions. What do you consider? You said you keep probing, and so what are some of the tools of your trade? What do you try to get to with your questioning with a client?
Well, I know in my very first meeting or interaction with a prospective client, they're usually, maybe 30 minutes or something like that via Zoom. I do a lot of my business virtually. And they'll say, "Hey, yeah, tell me a little bit about your firm." And I'll go, "Well, why don't you tell me a little bit about you? Like, why are you coming to a financial planner at this particular juncture? Did something happen? Was there an event?" There's usually not people, I've been doing this for 20 years, that just come up and say, "You know what? I want to go see a financial planner today." That's not how it works.
Yeah, yeah.
There's typically some type of event, maybe a job change, or it could be a death in the family. It could be a new child. It could be a lot of different things. And so I want to know what that triggering event is, because it gives me a lot of background on the person. Because at the end of the day, too, I want to know that who I'm bringing on potentially as a client is a good fit philosophically, morally, ethically with what I believe in too, because otherwise I can't be two different types of people. I can't be, a version of Dominique, the financial planner, and a version of Dominique, the person. Those are all the same person.
Right.
So it's good to ask those questions and see what they value, what things are important to them. And typically, the conversation goes pretty well, but there's been times where I go, this is just not a good fit. I mean, I don't think I can serve you at the best level. Here's a recommendation for somebody that may find a better fit with. So asking those questions are good. I think they're good for, me, the business owner, and for the consumer of financial services.
What have you asked in the past? You don't have to give me a name or anything, but what have you asked in the past that made you go, really? There was a question that surprised you. I mean, I can just imagine that when you're probing in people's lives, somebody's gonna say something that you're gonna go, seriously? I wasn't expecting that, or I don't believe I'd have told that, or
Well, there are some instances. I mean, I don't really have any specifics right now, Andy, but I do know some instances where, maybe I talked to one spouse or the other, and there's this Chinese wall between them. We know you've been married a while. I have been too. And sometimes finances are one of those things that can be, some real, difference makers in relationships, let's say.
right.
And so to understand one point of view, because everybody has their own money story. That's what's key there. And I don't necessarily call it wrong or right, because how you were brought up around money, what you talked about, what your parents said, all those things shape who you are when you come to me. But it's always very interesting when one spouse tries to keep things from the other. Like, I got a separate account over here. I don't want her to know, or don't want him to know. And, we need to keep that between us. And I'm always like, okay, that's kind of interesting foot to start off on.
Yeah, yeah. I deal with a lot of CEOs and a lot of coaches, like sports coaches. And one of the things that I tell them in our first meetings, that if we're gonna work together, there's something I need you to understand, and that is something I need you to understand about your life and life in general, and that is that secrets never last. They never
Mm,
last. You cannot keep a secret, and the longer you keep a secret, the longer you keep it, it's coming out. It's coming out at some point. But the longer you keep it, the more damage it'll do when it comes out. And 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 so these secrets, these things that happen, it's it's an odd thing, because there's so many times that, man, just being transparent, just telling the truth right off the bat, it might have been a little bumped, might have had to explain something, but it ain't gonna be the earthquake that happens when the secret comes out.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, that little level of uncomfort or discomfort at the beginning gets behind you, and then you can kind of move on. I agree.
When you were growing up and you were traveling in different places and making new friends, um, well, you talk about a time where a kid has the opportunity to choose a perspective. I mean, this can either be the best thing that ever happened in your life or the worst thing that ever happened in your life. And so, how did you lock on to navigating that?
It wasn't a linear path. It was through a lot of reflection, and to be just totally transparent, some of this stuff I had to kind of deal with in my mid 30s, and have hard conversations with my parents about the effect of that type of life, and some of the things that it led me down. Now, granted, I'm a big believer on, you make your choices, those are the consequence, you reap the consequences of those particular choices. But obviously, with some of the things that I experienced, I think it's one of those things, Andy, where when you're given the opportunity, and we talked about this before with the glass half full or glass half empty,
Yeah,
I think there's so much power in whether or not it's going your way at the moment. When you choose to be more optimistic and say, get glass half full, there's some type of power that's transferred to you, versus if you say glass half empty and you become the victim, because you have no control. Like, everybody's doing things to you. You're not happening to anything. Everything is happening to you. And I think, one of the ones that I remember in particular was, I think it was the 7th to 8th grade, where we came back to Dallas. My dad went to Korea for an 18-month tour or something like that. And me and my mom, like, we really, really, really kind of just really struggled at that point in time. I have two younger sisters. My cousin was living with us. My grandma was living with us. It was just a lot of attention that I was used to getting that I wasn't getting anymore. And so therefore I was acting out. And, I remember very distinctly throwing myself into church and ministry and all this other kind of stuff to really kind of I think that was an inflection point, right? I could either been that really knucklehead teenager in, South Oak Cliff, Dallas, and there's a lot of things going on back then that I could have got into, or I could have went that other route. And I'm glad I chose that other route. But it wasn't linear. It was just, as I'm looking back on my life and you're asking these questions and I'm kind of bringing this up, I was like, those were inflection points. And I think we can see those all in our lives as we look back, whether that's a career decision or the mate that you choose, all these things, where you choose to live. There's a lot of inflection points in our lives.
I've been asked, I had a thought there while you were talking that answered a question that I have been asked most of my adult life, and I've never really had an answer to it. And I think I just got the answer. And that question, people look at, like we were talking about the introduction, you go, golly, have I really done that? And so people have asked, interviewers will sometimes ask, what was the turning point for you? What was the big break, And you and I know that we go, well, there wasn't a big break. It was, none of this happened overnight at all. But I happen to think when you're talking, if there was a turning point in my life, that a decision that I made that turned me into whatever this is I continue to become, it was when I was 17. And, if I just say what happened, people naturally go, oh my God, seriously? And it wasn't my parents dying. It was that we moved, my family moved during my senior year in high school. We left in October of my senior year in high school. And people go, oh my God, how horrible. Well, that occurred to me too, right? When I was told we're moving. But I had another thought. I had it, and I didn't realize that I was presented the glass half full, glass half empty choice at that time. But I had another thought, and that was, when I grew up, I had bad eyesight, and so I had these black glasses. My wife sees pictures of me. She says, "Yeah, those are birth control glasses." And I had these black glasses. I had braces, and I wasn't necessarily like unpopular, I suppose. I guess I was just invisible. I wasn't a smart kid. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't in the drama club. I wasn't in anything. I just was kind of invisible. And even though, like in the 10th grade, I got contacts and I didn't have braces anymore, and my hair looked groovy, and I had grown up and I was seen as that nerd, I suppose, I guess. And so I happened to have the thought, you know what? When we move to this other place, these people know absolutely nothing about me. And I can become whatever I want them to think about me, I can become immediately. And I was kind of consumed by that thought for a couple of days. And when we moved, I immediately spotted the popular, cool kids at high school, and I just immediately went over and started hanging with them and just, quiet, throw a little jab in there every now and then. And I just started doing stuff like that. And I was totally accepted. It was like leaping from one life into another life. And literally within 2 months, I was dating the prettiest girl at the private school in town, and I was seen as this cool guy. And I was just like laughing to myself because I was like, really, where did this happen?
If they only knew.
Yeah. But I think that was a turning point in my life that I've never considered. That was the big break. That moment of thinking that I can be what I want to be. And I look at you. You're in a profession that there are a lot of people in the profession, and you're in one of those professions that people think, yeah, I know what that is. Okay. But you're doing it in such a different way. What has made your, just like, give me an experience that you've dealt with that you said, man, that made it all worthwhile right there. I mean, that made my year.
Yeah, this is a good question. I will give credit where credit is due. So about 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago, I was consulting with a friend. I had, I guess 18 months into doing my firm. And I started helping him with his business of coaching financial advisors. And during that process, I had to kind of eat my own cooking. You're coaching people, and you have your own firm, so you need to be doing some of the things you're telling them. So I hired a coach for get out there on YouTube and start doing this whole video thing. I'll give you an insight along this story line. Is I was doing some YouTube videos that were horrible.
Yeah, been there, done that. Been there, done that.
Oh my gosh. They were horrible. It was literally like a brown PowerPoint with me talking behind the screen, like no face, no nothing. And my wife, who again, I've outkicked my coverage here, says, so you're a financial planner. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, and you're asking people to trust you with their money, but you're not showing your face.
Like, good point.
Okay, there you go. So I'm going to do this. So we hire a YouTube coach, and wonderful young woman helps me with all these ideas. Well, one of her ideas is, why don't you do day in the life of a financial planner? And I'm like, no one cares about that. My clients are this, that. These are who I'm looking for. But at the end of the day, I was paying her. So I was like, I'm going ahead and take your advice.
Yeah. It's like, if you knew, you'd already done it. So, okay.
So we do this video. And I kid you not, this video is one of the most popular videos on my channel now. I don't know, maybe it's on 40 or 50,000 views, but this is essentially how the Jumpstart community got birthed, because so many people were watching this video that wanted to become financial planners or wanted to learn what this industry was about. And they were like, I didn't know that was a thing. Like,
yeah, that's what I want you to tell me about the Jumpstart Coaching Lab.
So that basically started from this video, and it started with really people saying, hey, Dom, great video. What about this? Or what about that? And, I'm answering these questions on YouTube, just really, first of all, surprised and shocked that people wanted to watch this.
Right.
And so I'm answering these questions. And at some point, you get to like the 100th question, you're like, okay, I think I've answered this before in a couple of different ways. And so I was like, why don't I create more videos? That way those questions get answered. And so I just create more videos. And I do this for, months and months and months. And soon I'm like, why don't I just create a place for these people to kind of congregate and share all this information? And obviously, Facebook is one of those tools where you can kind of do those things. So I created a Facebook group. And it just grew from there, Andy. Really, internationally, people, YouTube is international search engine, so people can find you all over the place.
Sure.
And so you put in Day in the Life Financial Advisor, Day in the Life of Financial Planner on YouTube, and I usually pop up in the first 3 or 4 results.
Man, that is awesome. And that, see, now, this is an odd term, but I use this a lot around my office. I say we need a nonviolent way of reaching. And what I mean by that is not to, do I want to sell books? Yeah, I want to sell books. That's how I make my living. But nobody wants to be bombarded with buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, And so I always say we got to find a nonviolent way of putting that message out, right? And by creating value for people so that they want to. And I think that video, I haven't seen it. I can't wait to see it. Matt, when we do the show notes, can we put a link to that video on there? Okay, we're going to put a link to that video on the show notes. Cool. And buddy, I want to keep up with you if you don't mind. Absolutely. You have quickly become I don't know. I sense your heart. And I told you this the other day. I sense a great heart in you every time I'm around you. And I want to keep up with you. If you don't mind, I would really like to keep up with you. And absolutely, no. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate your time with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It was an
honor. So how can people reach you? Obviously by, well, I tell you what, you don't even have to say, because we will find out and we will post all the links to you that we can find.
I appreciate it.
Buddy, thank you. Stuff. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Andy. Have a great one.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of the Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what tiny bit of mental energy I have for you. Seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk. Don't breathe anybody else's air. But make sure you have a positive answer to the question, hey, how's it going? And so, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Pickle livers provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by the Steakinator 3000. Friends, have you ever been caught in a rainstorm? Ever been hungry? Have you ever been hungry in a rainstorm? Do you love a surge of pure adrenaline while enjoying a meal? Well, we have the product for you. Introducing the revolutionary Steakinator 3000, the simple system for cooking steak that takes less than 1 second to prepare. First, procure a steak. Any steak will work. We recommend filet mignon. Second, find yourself a lightning storm. Third, using our patented collapsible aluminum rod system, stab the piece of meat directly in the center and place it on a plate. Fourth, go out into the wide open field or onto the beach by the ocean, wherever a lightning storm is taking place. Put the plate on the ground, extend the rod to its full length, run like crazy, and don't forget to cover your eyes. The Steakinator 3000 is bright and it's loud. Let the meat rest for approximately 3 minutes, then enjoy. Depending on the strength of the bolt, you will find your steak to be cooked somewhere between well done and charcoaled. If you order today for a limited time only, you'll receive a veggie rod to go with your Steakinator. Flash cooked broccoli, carrots, onions, or green beans. Set up the same as the Steakinator. Just stab it into the unlucky vegetable and you're all set. A Cabernet pairs nicely with your meal. So get the Steakinator and the veggie rod. When the next rainstorm pops up, while most will still view it as a negative, you'll see the positive. Warning, this product has been known to cause electrocution, intense vomiting, extreme diarrhea, fiery blisters, and in most cases, death.